Welcome everybody to the third and final round of our fifth annual mock trial tournament. So far today it's been extremely exciting. We've heard a lot of very interesting presentations and are looking forward to yours. Before we get started, if I could ask our bailiff, Deputy Old, to introduce yourself.
My name is Deputy Brent Old. I am a member of the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office. I've been in that capacity for 10 years now. I am currently the Student Resource Officer at Anchor Bay High School. Good luck to everybody here. You're doing a good job so far.
And I'll ask my fellow judges to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Stremmers. I'm a civil trial attorney and practicing here in St. Clair County.
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Keys. I am a senior assistant prosecutor here in St. Clair County. I'm in my 12th year of being a trial attorney. I do trial work on a daily basis, and I look forward to seeing some very interesting presentations. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Davidson. I'm an attorney. I practice here in Port Huron. I was sworn in 35 years ago this year. And this is my 5th year of judging this tournament. I've done it since it started, and I never fail to be very entertained and never cease to be amazed by what a great job you guys do. I see some familiar faces again, and welcome all back.
Good afternoon. Welcome to your final round. You're probably tired and somewhat relieved that you're at this particular point. My name is Cynthia Lane. I am a lawyer in private practice. I'm a trial lawyer and have been so for 30 years. This is also my 5th time participating in the program, along with Mark. We've been around the same amount of time almost. And we, the first 2 years, I was a coach for the Algonac schools. And the past 3 years, including this, I have been a judge. So welcome and enjoy.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Thomas. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for almost 10 years. I practice out of St. Clair. I do criminal defense as well as civil litigation. I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I wish you guys all the best of luck. Just remember before you start, take a deep breath, relax, and have fun.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Van Giesen. I'm a newly licensed attorney, and I'm actually doing a year of community service through AmeriCorps. And doing some legal work in areas of housing law and issues related to poverty. So have fun today.
Thank you, judges, and I will say my name is Mona Armstrong. I'm a senior assistant prosecuting attorney here in St. Clair County. I've been with our office for approximately 15 years. Before that, I started as Judge Peter Deegan's research attorney, and I currently am assigned to our major crimes unit here in St. Clair County, handling most homicide and high-profile cases. So I have tried murder cases, and I know a little bit about what you guys are going to be doing, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation here this afternoon. So with that being said, let me call the case in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Alex Johnson, file 2010 MT. Is the prosecution ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you please give us your appearances?
Okay.
Your names.
Gerhard Shooting.
Pardon?
Gerhard Shooting.
My name is Charles Decker.
I am Robert Downey.
Great. Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Zachary Crum.
My name is Lena Liu.
And my name is Joshua Kenny.
Great. Is the prosecutor prepared to give us your opening statement?
Yes.
You may please do so.
Permission to turn the podium to face straight?
I'm not sure you can turn it because of the wiring, but you can turn if you'd like.
All right, thank
Okay.
you. Today, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've been called here to make your verdict on the case of the people of the state of Michigan versus Alex Johnson. Now, I'm here today to represent the people, but that's because I cannot represent the victim of this case, Ann Marcus, who could not appear here today. Alex Johnson, the defendant in this trial, will be seen before you, but Ann Marcus, however, still cannot. For Ann is a 17-year-old girl. She was an avid rock climber, an excellent student. She was a daughter of 2 loving parents, and she had hopes of going to State University next year. However, when she went for the Distinguished Writers Foundation Scholarship, there was a bit of a mix-up during the exam where 2 students cheated. and Alex Johnson, one of those students, over matters directly relating to this Distinguished Writers Foundation scholarship, murdered Ann Marcus. Now, a short-tempered individual who made rash decisions constantly, Alex Johnson stole the answers to this test from his teacher, Mr. Jackson's locked cabinet. And on May 28th, he took the exam with no one the wiser. On June 5th, while he was in the process of disposing the evidence, Ann Marcus came up and curiously snatched the paper out of their hands. When she realized that it was the paper they had used to cheat on the exam and rob the other students of their chance at this scholarship. Always the pinnacle of honesty, she told them that they had until Monday to turn themselves in, or she would be the one to do it herself. It was this trust that Alex Johnson took advantage of. For on June 7th, Alex Johnson murdered Ann Marcus. She took a rock, bludgeoned her over the head, knocking her unconscious, and left her to drown in the rocky surf. I will prove all of these events occurred beyond a reasonable doubt. My witness, Pat Harding's testimony will give you a look into the rash and short-tempered individual and the events and decisions he made in the weeks leading up to this murder he committed. My witness, Dr. Morgan Sanford's testimony, will show that this death was a murder, not an accident on Ann's part. My witness, Officer Chris Bond's testimony, will show you that Alex Johnson knew more than any student at Clearwater could know about the death of Ann Marcus, and will also give you a glimpse into the stressful atmosphere that gave Alex Johnson the motive to kill Ann Marcus. I ask you to listen to them and the facts they present to the court. I ask you to see the scenes as though you were there. And if you do all of this, I ask you to make the right decision and declare and convict Alex Johnson guilty of murder of the first degree. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the defense ready to present their opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please do so.
Before I begin, I would like to request permission from myself and my co-counselors to move freely about the courtroom.
You can move freely during your opening statement.
Thank you.
Okay.
May it please the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Your Honor, my name is Joshua Kenny, and today my co-counselors, Lena Liu and Zach Crum, and myself will be defending Alex Johnson. Today's case, ladies and gentlemen, is a case of many possibilities, each one just as likely as the next. It is possible that Ann Marcus's death was a tragic accident, ladies and gentlemen. She was rock climbing when she died, and that is known to be a highly dangerous activity. It is also widely known that Ballina Beach, where she was climbing, is a cesspool for drug and alcohol use. Any number of people could have murdered Ann Marcus. You will also hear later that another witness in this case, Pat Harding, also had an equal motive, means, and opportunity to kill Ann Marcus. If there is one thing we can be certain of today, ladies and gentlemen, it is that Alex Johnson did not murder Ann Marcus. Today, the prosecution has the burden of proof. They will be attempting to prove that Alex Johnson committed first-degree premeditated murder. They must prove beyond a reasonable doubt every element of first-degree premeditated murder. A reasonable doubt is a fair or honest doubt growing from evidence or lack thereof. They must prove that Alex Johnson murdered Ann Marcus, that he intended to kill her, that it was thought out beforehand or premeditated, that he had time to consider his actions, and that the killing was not justified. We are confident, ladies and gentlemen, that today the prosecution will fail. They will not be able to meet their burden of proof. Alex Johnson and a fellow student, Pat Harding, were caught cheating on an honors English exam. The exam was very important because the people who did the best on the exam would win the DWF, or Distinguished Writers Foundation Scholarship. This scholarship would open numerous doors to them and allow them to attend prestigious universities. Both Alex and Pat will admit that they cheated on the exam, and they are both very regretful that they did so. On June 5th, Ann Marcus came up to them in the hallway at school and found out that they had cheated. She told them that she was going to turn them in on Monday if they did not themselves. On June 7th, Alex called Pat and told him that they were going to Ballina Beach to talk with Ann where she would be rock climbing. They only went to Ballina Beach to reason with Ann to give them a chance to turn themselves in. Murder never once crossed Alex Johnson's mind that night. Today, you will hear from 3 very reliable witnesses. First, you will hear from Park Ranger Jamie Almont. She is a park ranger at Ballina Beach where Ann was climbing, and will give you a description of the geography of Ballina Beach and the cove where Ann Marcus's body was found. She will also give you a timeline of events on June 7th. And finally, she will tell you that she spoke with Alex Johnson before June 7th, and that he had expressed to her his intent to turn himself in. Next, you will hear from Dr. Taylor Van Doren, a respected forensic pathologist. He will tell you all about his investigation of Ann Marcus's death. He will describe injuries found on her wrist, and that they could have easily been made during an accidental fall while rock climbing. He will also describe injuries on Ann Marcus's head that coincide with injuries made during an accidental fall. And finally, he will give his opinion as to Dr. Morgan Sanford's conclusions. He will say that Dr. Sanford's conclusions are very flawed and explain his reasons for thinking so. And finally, you'll hear from Alex Johnson himself. He will tell you that yes, he and Pat did cheat on the honors English exam, and that he is very remorseful for doing so. He will also explain that he had, as I stated earlier, only gone to Ballina Beach to reason with Ann to give them a chance to turn themselves in. And finally, he will tell you that he not only didn't kill Ann Marcus, but that during the course of events on June 7th, he saved her life. Today, the prosecution's witnesses will present you their opinions as to how Ann Marcus died. Please keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that there were no witnesses to Ann Marcus's death. No one. Ladies and gentlemen,
Stop.
Thank you. I would call upon the prosecutor to call your first witness.
The prosecution calls Pat Harding to the stand.
Do you swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial? I do. Please be seated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Pat Harding.
Could you spell that for us?
P-A-T-H-A-R-D-I-N-G.
And what's your current address, Mr. Harding?
I live at 42 Nieppe Road in Clearwater.
How old are you?
18.
And are you currently in school?
No, I just recently graduated Clearwater High School in August.
Do you have any plans now that you've graduated?
Well, I wanted to go to State University.
Wanted? That's past tense. Why do you say wanted?
Because I'm not sure it's ever going to be a possibility for me now.
Why not?
Because I didn't receive the Distinguished Writers Foundation scholarship.
Could you please tell us a little more about that?
It's a scholarship for the top 3 grades on the honors literature exam.
And did you take this exam?
Yes, I did.
How did you do?
I did good.
And yet you still didn't receive it?
No.
Why is that?
Because Alex Johnson pressured me into cheating with him on it.
Is Alex here today?
Yes, he is.
Could you please point him out to the court and tell us what he's wearing?
He's wearing a suit with a red tie.
And how did you cheat on this exam?
Alex, he snooped around and he found keys to Mr. Jackson's cabinets, and he found a blank copy of the exam.
What happened next?
Well, I told him to put it back, but he wouldn't listen to me. He was very insistent that I went along with it because I already knew too much.
And how did you feel about all this?
I was nervous, but Alex was, again, pretty insistent that I went along with it.
You could have gotten into trouble even though you didn't cheat?
Yeah, yeah, I could have gotten in trouble.
And why is that?
Because of the Clearwater's honor system.
And what is this honor system?
It's where basically if you don't turn in someone for cheating, they get treated in the same way.
And why would Clearwater have such a rule as this?
Because Clearwater's had a history of cheating.
Now, what happened after you cheated on the exam?
Well, we ended up doing well. On Sunday, June 7th, Alex asked me to drive him up to Galena Beach to talk to Ann.
Could we rewind that a little bit, please, to the events directly occurring?
Oh, sure. We were in a hallway one day after school, and we were talking about it. Alex instructed me to get rid of the exam when Ann Marcus came up, and she grabbed the copy of the exam out of our hands.
What happened next?
Well, she was pretty upset that we cheated on it. Then she threw it in her locker and walked away. She's told us that if we didn't turn ourselves in by Monday, she would.
And what was Alex's reaction to this?
Alex was furious.
Is this normal behavior for Alex?
Yeah.
And what happened after Ann took the exam from you?
Then we drove up to Galena Beach on June 7th.
And did anything happen between you two on the way there?
Well, Alex was fuming the whole way there. I tried to talk to him that it wouldn't do any good to talk to Ann, but he just wouldn't listen to me.
Now, once you arrived at Galena Beach, what occurred?
Me and Alex, we hiked up to the ridge of the rock where Ann was climbing. When Ann got to where we were, Alex completely snapped.
And what do you mean by snapped?
He lunged forward and grabbed Ann's collar.
And what happened next?
Well, Ann was waving her arms around, just trying to keep her balance. I was pretty terrified. I didn't know what to do.
Where were you at this point in time?
Well, by that time we were at the promontory, where the trail curves around the cove. Alex and Ann were pushing and shoving each other and screaming. I was pretty terrified.
So, what did you do next?
Well, I told them that I was just going to go back to the car and wait. I couldn't watch it anymore.
And what time was it when you arrived back at the car, Mr. Harding?
The dashboard said 7:50 p.m.
And what happened next?
Well, I waited around for a little bit. I turned on the radio, went to the bathroom a couple times.
And when did Alex arrive back?
Alex finally got back to the car around 9.
Did anything occur between you after arrival?
He was pretty short-tempered, tried to argue with me about a lot of things. I just decided it was best just to drive back to the city.
And did you notice anything odd on this drive home?
Yeah, I turned on the interior lights of the car, and I noticed a small stain on the inside of Alex's right wrist, and it looked like dried blood.
And your reaction to this was...
At the time, I didn't think of anything of it. We were both pretty upset, so...
And so, did anything else happen that night?
No, we just went home.
So, what occurred the next day?
I got to school around 11 because I had a doctor's appointment. I was pretty shocked when the principal announced Ann's death.
Well, that's a reasonable reaction, Mr. Harding, but did anything happen after that?
Yeah, at around 1:15, I got a note to go down to the principal's office to talk to Chris Bonds, our school resource officer.
And could you please describe that interaction for the court?
Well, he told us that Ann had turned us in for cheating, and I immediately told him that me and Alex were with her the night before at the beach, and I remembered the stain on the inside of the wrist, so I told him about that, too.
And after that?
He thanked me and let me go back to class.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Harding, you cheated on the exam, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And even though you say Alex pressured you, you still made the choice to cheat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you knowingly broke your school rules?
Yes.
And in fact, this isn't the first time that you've broken the school rules, isn't that correct?
Yes, it is.
So, because this is not the first time, you lost your chance at the DWF scholarship, correct?
Yep.
And you described yourself as feeling doomed after being caught cheating?
Yeah.
And you have a lot of family pressure on you to do well with this scholarship, isn't that correct?
Yeah, my brother and sister won it 2 years before.
Okay, so this hampered your chances at getting into a good college then, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Now, moving on to the evening where you and Alex went to go talk to Ann, you said Alex snapped, isn't that correct?
Yep.
Isn't it true that Ann was standing next to a cliff edge?
Yes.
Okay, so wouldn't you consider it a reasonable reaction to jump at someone and grab them if they're losing their balance near a cliff edge?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's very possible that that could have been what Alex was doing, correct?
it's possible.
Okay. Next, you stated that Alex and Ann got into an argument, pushing and shoving, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And you said you were terrified?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't call the police, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't call the park ranger? You didn't
No.
try to inform anyone that a confrontation was going on?
No.
Okay. You walked back to the car after watching Ann and Alex walk to the cove, correct?
Yep.
And there's nobody that can testify to your whereabouts other than you, correct?
I guess so.
Okay. So, other than your testimony, we have no idea where you were then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the spot that you mentioned on Alex's wrist, you have no scientific proof as to whether or not that was blood or dirt or even a freckle, do you?
No.
That's just what you thought it looked like, isn't that correct?
Yep.
In fact, it was 9 o'clock at night when you saw that, isn't that true?
Yeah, but I had the interior lights
Okay,
on, so.
all right, thank you. Now, when you were questioned by Officer Bonds, he was the first person that you told all of this suspicious the activity that was going on by Alex, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't think it important until you were questioned by the police then, right?
Yep.
Okay, and you pushed all of the blame on Alex then, right?
Not entirely.
You blamed him for getting you into the cheating, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. It is your opinion of Belena Beach that it's a cesspool of alcoholics and drug dealers, isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So then it's a known hangout for criminals then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One final question for you, Mr. Harding. You never actually saw Alex kill Ann, did you?
No, I did not.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, it was previously brought up that you did blame Alex for bringing you into cheating the exam, yes?
Yeah.
Now, did you steal the exam?
I didn't steal it.
Did you ask her to present you with this exam?
No, I did not.
So, wouldn't it be fair to blame her, in your opinion?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Do you have a response?
It's not leading, Your Honor.
Actually, I think it is. I'm going to sustain the objection, but you
Thank
can
you,
just
Your Honor.
restate your question. You're welcome.
Do you blame Alex Johnson for the cheating?
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. And prosecutor, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Officer Chris Bonds to the stand.
You swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon, Officer Bonds.
Good afternoon.
Can you please spell your name for the court?
K-R-I-S-B-O-N-D-S.
Are you employed, Mr. Bonds?
Yes.
And where are you employed?
I am a police officer of Clearwater.
You know why you're here today?
I am the lead investigator into the murder of Ann Marcus.
All right. In addition to investigative and other police duties, do you do anything else?
I am the school resource officer for the Clearwater High.
And how long have you held that position?
3 years.
What can you tell the court about the atmosphere at Clearwater High School?
Extremely competitive. Students have been known to taunt cheat and sabotage each other to one-up the other.
Can you tell us more about the honor system developed 2 years ago?
It is a system that was developed to help stop the rampant cheating due to the internet at the high school.
And how would people who knew about cheating but didn't cheat get punished? They get punished?
Yes, they would get punished just as severely as the people who cheated.
Are you familiar with Pat Harding and the defendant, Alex Johnson?
Yes.
Can you please tell the court any characteristics of Alex Johnson?
Alex Johnson is very athletic, has good leadership, or has very many leadership qualities, but tends to use them very negatively.
Has Alex Johnson ever been caught cheating?
Yes.
And when was he caught cheating?
A couple of years ago, back in 2008.
If Alex Johnson were ever caught cheating again, what would those punishments be for him?
He would not graduate with the rest of his class. He would have to retake his course over the summer, which would mean that he would also not receive the DWF scholarship.
And what would this do to his college chances?
It would destroy them.
Even if he'd already been accepted?
Yes, even if he...
Moving on. When did you receive the call about the body of Ann Marcus?
7 o'clock Monday morning.
Did anything surprise you when you arrived at the beach?
The body was not where I originally thought it would be. It was actually down south at the cove.
Were you able to visually examine the body?
Yes.
And did you see anything suspicious?
The victim was the Ann Marcus. She had a 5-centimeter laceration above her left temple, and there were no large rocks or anything that she could have hit her head on.
Can you tell us anything else suspicious about the surrounding area?
Well, when I inspected the surrounding area, I found a small rock that could be easily held in someone's hand that had dried blood on it.
And what exactly happened after that?
I called it in and went to the high school.
Before you went to the high school, did you hear anything from the medical examiner?
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay?
Do you have a response?
It is not hearsay because I'm asking him what he was informed the medical examiner said the cause of death was.
I don't believe he can testify himself as to what the medical examiner said. He can indicate what he did based upon that information. So to that extent, the objection is sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Then I withdraw my question. So, you went to the high school. Was that when you were assigned to Ann's death?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. That was a leading question.
Do you have a response?
I don't think it was leading.
I think it was just orienting everyone to time. So I think that I think that's an appropriate question at this point, and I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you do when you arrived at Clearwater High School?
I asked the students and staff around the building.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay again.
Your Honor, it's not hearsay because it's part of Officer Chris Bond's investigation.
And I understood the question to be, what did you do? And that's fine, and as long as you don't get into any statements that anyone made to you, I'll allow you to continue with that answer.
And I learned from the students and staff that Ann Marcus was a very well-liked and very smart individual. And I had also learned that at 7 o'clock this morning that her locker had been smashed open and papers and...
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to have to object to hearsay again. It even says in the statement, in my conversations with administrators and staff, therefore those are all out-of-court statements. I believe it is hearsay.
Do you have a response?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay. Because it would appear as though this witness does not have personal knowledge about how the locker was broken into, I am going to sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Then I withdraw my question. Did you question anyone else after that?
Yes, I questioned the defendant and Pat Harding.
And what did the conversation with Pat entail?
Well, I told Pat Harding that I knew about, or that he had been reported for cheating, and when I told him about this, I learned from him that he and the defendant were the last known people with the victim.
All right, never mind. You questioned Alex after Pat, correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Do you have a response?
All I can say is that it was part of Officer Crispin's investigation, Your Honor.
If you could just restate your question, I think you'll get to the same area.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you question anyone else after you questioned Pat Harding?
Yes, I questioned the defendant.
Can you please describe your conversation with Alex Johnson?
Well, when he came in, I sat down in the principal's chair so as I would not be standing over him or trying to intimidate him in any way. I read him his Miranda rights, just to be sure. And when I was talking about the death of Ann Marcus, he immediately reported that how sad it was that she had hit her head and died.
Did you find this suspicious at all?
Yes, because only I and the medical examiner knew about the laceration to the victim's head.
And what did you do with that knowledge?
I filed for a arrest warrant with the judge later on. Later that day, I arrested the defendant.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. And Cross.
Officer Bonds, you went to Valina Beach and found a body in the cove, is that right?
Yes.
And you immediately recognized it to be Ann Marcus, correct?
Upon inspection, yes.
And you also mentioned there was a crowd of onlookers at the cove, is that right?
They were on the ridge overlooking the cove, but
They were looking at her body, is that right?
from a very far distance, yes.
Just yes or no, please, were they looking at her body? That was a yes?
No.
Okay. And isn't it possible that since these people saw a dead girl at the cove that they would spread the news about this?
Yes.
So it's not very suspicious at all that Alex would know about this. Isn't that right?
No, because it would be suspicious because only he knew about the laceration to the victim's head.
Officer Bonds, you said there was people around the cove, is that right?
I said
And
that
those
they
people-
were above the cove.
Okay, and the people were looking down at her body and they would have seen her head injuries, is that right?
No. They
Officer Bonds, were you there at the scene?
Yes.
So, but you don't know that those people didn't see her head injuries, is that right?
Due to the positioning of the body and the size of the laceration to her head, it would have been near impossible to see any types of marks on the victim's body unless they inspected it thoroughly.
Okay, but they did know about a dead girl that was at the cove, is that right?
Yes.
And they could have, there's a possibility that they would have spread the news about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that Pat was caught cheating too?
Yes.
And he was reported for the principal for taunting and punching a transfer student previously?
Yes.
And this occurred more than once?
He only assaulted a foreign exchange student once.
That was not my question, Officer Barnes. My question was yes or no, did Pat do this again?
Do what again? Assault a student?
Of the sort, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And you know that Pat's hostility is known to go beyond sarcasm, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, had Pat been turned in for cheating, he would have also lost his chance of getting a DWF scholarship and also have suffered some great consequences academically, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you say that you found a rock on the ledge at the cove, is that right?
Yes.
And the rock was found in a place where there was sand around and no moisture?
Mm-hmm.
Now, wouldn't you say that this is a very compromised spot to find something and provide evidence for? Wouldn't you agree?
No, it was at the scene of the crime, so.
There was sand around, there was no moisture, and you're saying this evidence was not compromised?
No.
All right. Wasn't it possible that the speck of blood could have been the result of Anne falling and hitting her head?
Well, it would not explain why the rock was so far away from her body.
That wasn't my question. I'm asking you if it's a possibility that the speck of blood...
Objection, speculation.
For response?
Well, Your Honor, I'm just asking, since he investigated this, I'm asking him about all the different possibilities of what occurred that night.
I think it would call for speculation. I'm going to sustain the objection.
Thank you,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
So you interrogated Alex, is that right?
I questioned him conversationally, if that's what you mean.
And you read him his Miranda rights?
Yes.
So you're calling this situation where you're reading him his rights and questioning him a casual conversation?
Well, yes, I was trying to be as informal and
Officer Bonds, just yes or no, please.
yes.
You're saying that a situation where you're reading him rights and interrogating him is a casual conversation.
I was reminding him of his rights. Everybody has those rights.
And isn't it true that you never read Pat those rights?
I had no suspicion to.
So, for those two people who were both there that night, you're suspicioning one over the other. Wouldn't that be bias? Are you
No.
being biased?
No.
So the fact that you only read rights to one over the other, does that mean that you're not biased?
No, because I did not learn about that until after. I'm not gonna.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, witness may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And people may call your next witness.
Prosecution calls Dr. Morgan Sanford to stand.
Do you swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Dr. Morgan Sanford.
Would you please spell that out?
Morgansanford.
Thank you. Now, what is your occupation?
I am the chief coroner in the death of Ann Marcus. I am the chief assistant coroner for Madison County.
Thank you. Now, were you personally at the crime scene?
Yes, I was.
And what did you observe?
Upon being at the crime scene, I noticed many things. One, that Ann was wearing traditional climber's gear. She had shorts, a tank top, and boots. And then upon closer inspection of the body, I noticed there was her eye was swollen, her left eye, and there was a laceration on her left temple, and that she also had ligature marks on her wrists.
And during your examination, what was your conclusion on the estimated time of death?
8:30 to 12 p.m.
Now, these ligature marks, what makes you believe them to be ligature marks?
Well, I've seen them before, and they are highly unlikely for a rock climber to sustain truly from just rock climbing.
You say you've seen this earlier. Could you please clarify on that?
I've seen them in 9 or 10 previous cases.
And what were the cause of these marks?
The victim had been tied or bound with rope.
Okay. And while you were at the crime scene, did you see any rope?
No, I did not.
Wouldn't it be difficult for there to be ligature marks if there were no rope found?
Yes, there was.
Objection, Your Honor. The counsel is leading the witness.
Do you have a response?
I'm just asking a possibility. If there was no rope found, then how could there be marks?
It's still a leading question, Your Honor.
Just rephrase your question, please.
I withdraw a question. Okay. You also say you found a wound above her left temple.
Yes, I did.
And how could she have gotten a wound like this?
Well, it was a 5-centimeter laceration. I would guess because there is a hairline fracture underneath that she had been hit over the head with a large object or a small object such as the rock.
And how could the rock have caused this?
With somebody holding her head and striking her with the rock.
So she couldn't have gotten this simply from a fall?
It is highly unlikely that she did, because in order for that to happen, that rock would have had to have been wedged with a much larger rock, which in the case that Officer Bonds has found, it isn't.
And I have no further questions.
Any cross-exam?
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, you used rigor mortis to determine time of death in this case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And there are many factors involved in using rigor mortis, correct?
Yes.
And it's a very difficult process, correct?
Yes.
So, yes or no, it is possible for there to be errors made due to all the variables?
Yes.
You also stated that you assumed Ann Marcus had died at 8:30.
Well, I had estimated that using the rigor mortis and taking into account all those other things that could have changed the rate of rigor mortis.
Thank you, Doctor. So you aren't exactly sure what time she died?
No.
And it would be difficult for you to give a very accurate estimation as to her death?
I think the estimation I gave was fairly accurate.
Doctor, you estimated her dying sometime between 8 and 12 midnight, correct?
Yes.
You're aware that's a 4-hour time span, correct, Doctor?
Yes.
So anything could have happened to her in those 4 hours?
Yes.
On direct examination, you stated that there was a hairline fracture on her skull?
Yes.
And that you would guess that it resulted from her being struck in the head?
Well, in my opinion, that's how it got there.
But you aren't 100% sure?
Well, it's highly unlikely it got there any other way.
But there is a chance that it could have been received in some other way?
A very, very small chance, but yes.
But a chance?
Very small chance, yes.
Thank you. You believed that the head injuries, and namely the laceration, was caused by a blunt force blow to the head, correct?
Yes, I do.
And a blunt force blow would be described as her head striking an object with a significant amount of force, yes or no?
Or an object striking her head.
Yes or no, please, Doctor.
Yes.
And had she fallen, Doctor, and struck her head on the way down, that would create a significant amount of force, yes or no?
Yes.
So that would be, yes or no, Doctor, that could have possibly caused the head injuries?
Like I said before, it's a slight chance, but it could have.
Okay, thank you. There was blood found on a rock, correct?
Yes.
And you did genetic testing on this blood?
Yes, I did.
And you determined that it was type A, correct?
Yes, I did.
And Ann Marcus has type A blood, correct?
Correct.
As does Alex Johnson?
Correct.
Many people have type A blood, don't they, Doctor?
Yes.
You also stated that there were only 2 of 6 identifiable genetic markers present in the blood to link it to Ann Marcus's.
Yes.
So, due to all these factors, it is possible that the blood could have belonged to somebody else?
Possible.
Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor, could the witness please approach the diagram marked as Exhibit 3?
It hasn't been admitted yet.
Would you like me to now, Doctor?
Before there's any testimony about it, it needs to be admitted.
Okay. Is that the diagram you made, Doctor?
Yes, it is.
Is it, in your opinion, accurate?
Yes, it is.
Has it been altered in any way since you made it?
No, it is not.
Your Honor, I now move to enter Exhibit 3 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Is there any objection from the prosecution?
No.
Then the exhibit is admitted, and the witness may step down if you'd like her to testify.
Yes, could you please approach the diagram? Could you please point out the head laceration for us, Doctor?
Right there.
And could you please point out the marks on the body's wrist?
There, there.
And Doctor, could you please point out the swelling around the left eye on the body?
It's not there.
And it's not there because you didn't include it, correct, Doctor?
Correct.
And you didn't believe it was important, correct?
Correct.
You've already stated that these head injuries could have been caused by an accidental fall, correct, doctor?
Yes, they could have.
And that's a possible explanation for all the wounds on Ann Marcus's body?
Most of them, yes.
Therefore, it would be rather important, correct, doctor?
Yes.
And could you please point out the cuts and bruises on the body, doctor?
There are none.
And you didn't include those again because you didn't believe they were important?
I attributed those to her body being bumped around in the rocky surf.
Could she also have sustained these cuts and bruises during a fall? Down a cliff face while rock climbing?
Yes, but seeing as how she drowned it, like I said, I attributed them to the rocky surf.
Thank you, doctor. But it is possible that they could have been made during a fall?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. You stated there were what you believe to be ligature marks on Ann Marcus's wrist, correct?
Yes, I did.
And the body was wearing rock climbing clothes, correct?
Yes.
So is it safe to assume that Ann Marcus was rock climbing on June 7th?
Yes.
And, yes or no, doctor? Had she fallen while rock climbing, is there a possibility that she could have given herself marks like these from her rope?
It's highly unusual for a...
Yes or no, please, doctor?
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirects?
Just a few more questions. Okay. Now, the defense just said that she could have got ligature marks caused from rope, correct?
Yes.
And you said there was no rope found at the crime scene.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. I never brought up on cross-examination whether or not there was a rope found.
Do you have a response?
I believe that his last question has something to do with rope and causing her having ligature marks on her wrists.
There were some questions about the ligature mark, so based upon that, I think this is an appropriate area of inquiry.
I have no further questions.
I'm not sure if we got the answer.
There was no rope found at the crime scene.
Okay.
Okay, now no further questions.
Thank you. You may step down. I'm sorry, did you have any recross?
Okay. Yes, Your Honor. You just stated, Doctor, correct, that the rope was not found?
Yes.
And do you believe that while she was rock climbing, she had a rope?
Yes, I do.
Would it be possible, Doctor, if had she have fallen, she could have become tangled in the rope, and they could have been washed away in the surf?
Objection, speculation.
Yeah, this is an expert witness. I'm merely asking your opinion as to how something. I'm trying to clear up some misconception.
I'm going to allow the question.
I would suppose so, yes.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now you may step down.
Thank you.
People rest your case.
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Then I would ask the defense to call your first witness.
The defense calls Jamie Allen to the stand.
Do you swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial?
Yeah.
Please be seated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Please state your name for the record.
I am Jamie Elmont.
And what is your occupation?
I am a park ranger.
How much experience have you had?
14 years. I've worked at Belena Beach for the past 3 of them.
What exactly are your duties as a park ranger?
I collect the day use fee from the kiosk, and I maintain the park areas to make sure that it's clean, and I make sure that everybody is out by sunset.
And I would like to move evidence at this time, Your Honor.
Okay.
First, I would like to establish foundation, of course. Ms. Salmon, that's not the right. Is there Exhibit 1 diagram?
It's behind there.
Okay. Can I, Your Honor, may I?
Yes, you may.
Ms. Salmon, does that diagram look familiar?
It does.
What is it?
It is a map of Belena Beach.
And how do you know this?
I drew it.
From the point that you drew it, has there been any differences made to that map?
No, there is not.
All right. Your Honor, we now move Exhibit 1 into evidence. Its authenticity has been stipulated.
Is there any objection? Then the exhibit will be admitted.
Can you describe the cove area, Ms. Almont?
It is very rocky and it is very dangerous.
What are the possible routes to the cove?
There are 2 hiking trails, and you can also get down to the cove by walking on the ridge.
Is there any other way to reach the cove?
You can reach the cove by rock climbing.
So, did anybody arrive at Buena Beach on June 7th around 6?
A young lady showed up. I later learned that it was Ann Marcus by reading the newspaper.
Did anybody else come after her?
2 people in a white sports car showed up, but I was cleaning up a mess away from the kiosk, so I couldn't tell who it was.
Was there anybody else that came after these 3 people?
No, there was not.
Okay. And what did you do next?
I went and cleaned up the picnic area.
Did you ever go back to the parking lot?
I did. I returned to the parking lot about 8:40, and I noticed that the white sports car and the car that arrived at 6 o'clock was still there. So I decided to go look around the beach to see if I could find the owners.
Your Honor, may the witness please approach Exhibit 1?
Yes, you may.
Are you guys able to see that? Or should I move? Miss Alma, can you point out where you were at this time?
I was at the parking lot.
And where did you head to find these owners of the car?
I head down by the promontory in the ridge.
Did you come across anybody?
Yeah, there was a person walking away from the cove. They crossed my path about 75 to 80 feet ahead of me.
And where did you go next?
I started to walk back towards the parking lot, and I noticed that there was another person coming from the north, and they crossed my path 30 feet ahead of me. It looked like it could have been the passenger of the white sports car.
And how sure of you are this?
Pretty sure.
Okay. And what did you do next?
I returned to the parking lot, and I noticed that the white sports car was missing. So I wrote up a citation for the car that arrived at 6, and I went back to the ranger station, and I was done for the day.
Okay, you may be seated. Miss Alma, do you know Alex Johnson?
I do. We go to church together.
What can you tell us about Alex Johnson?
He's very responsible. He's worked on a couple charity events at our church. He worked on a canned food drive, and the Chamber of Commerce gave him an award for it.
When was the last time you saw Alex Johnson?
I saw him on Sunday, June 7th.
And did you learn anything from him?
I learned that he cheated on this exam at school. He told me that he was going to tell the school on Tuesday that he cheated because he wanted to wait from when his parents called so he could tell them. He was very remorseful about it.
And did this occur before he went to Buena Beach?
It did.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You were working at Buena Beach on June 7th, correct?
Correct.
Now, in your statement, when you say that you saw the first person, you say it was at 8:50 p.m. My question for you is, you say there's twilight left. How can there still be twilight left when the sun set at 8:04 that night?
Well,
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Do you have a response?
No, I'm just trying to establish that it would be pretty dark when Ranger Almont saw the first person.
Why don't you ask that question?
All right, from your testimony up there, you sounded pretty sure when you said you saw these person, but it's dark out, so how could you be sure you saw these people?
well, there was a person moving, so you probably see that there's movement in the dark.
Okay, you say that you know Alex Johnson through church, correct?
Correct.
And would you say you know Alex and his family pretty well?
I do.
Now, if you're friends with Alex Johnson, wouldn't that make you biased?
No.
But you wouldn't want to see your good friend go to prison now, would you?
No, I wouldn't.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Almond, do you know Alex Johnson from anything else other than church?
No, I don't.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down. And the defense may call your next witness.
The defense would like to call Dr. Taylor Van Doren to the stand.
You swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial?
I do.
Have a seat, please.
Could you please state your name for the court?
Yes, I am Dr. Taylor Van Doren.
And what is your occupation, doctor?
Well, I'm retired now, so I mostly keep up with a little bit of rock climbing, and I have some seminar courses I continue to teach at State University.
You mentioned rock climbing, doctor. How involved are you with rock climbing?
Well, I was past president of the Clearwater Rock Climbers, so I would like to think I had that position for a reason.
Are you a rock climber, doctor?
I am.
Are you knowledgeable in the area of rock climbing?
I would think so.
Have you talked with other rock climbers before?
Most definitely.
Your Honor, I would like to move to enter Dr. Taylor Van Doren into the record as an expert in rock climbing.
Is there a response?
Objection. Speculation never clarified him as an expert rock climber.
It can be safely. I believe it can be safely decided from the facts provided that he is a rock climber and an expert in the field.
I think it's somewhat outside the scope of our factual scenario, so I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay.
Thanks, Your Honor.
And doctor, what was the main focus of your career?
My main focus of my career itself was in forensic pathology. I got my medical license back in a long time ago, 79 I believe it was. Might have been a little earlier than that. Anyways, come around 88, I decided to shift out of the small personally owned practice and go into forensic pathology and obtain my certification. So I started working at the Clearwater coroner's office back in 89. I retired 3 years ago.
And what have you done since you were a retired doctor?
Oh, since I've retired, not a whole lot. I've kept some of the courses. I continue to teach courses and be active in the field, and I provide contractual services where I can provide another opinion on cases such as this one, kind of like you would seek a secondary opinion if you were diagnosed with some awful illness.
Could you please restate some of the high points of your career, doctor?
Love to. I have 9 articles in professional journals. Probably my favorite thing was that the textbook I wrote about on the subject of forensic pathology is now one of the standard texts used in many, many different classes across the nation.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'd now like to move to admit Dr. Taylor Van Doren is an expert in forensic pathology.
Is there any objection?
No.
Then the witness will be permitted to testify as an expert in the area of forensic pathology.
Thank you, Your Honor. What connection do you have with today's case, doctor?
I was hired by Alex Johnson's attorney to provide the second opinion I mentioned earlier in the case.
And what were some of the materials you used in your investigation?
Well, I didn't have access to the body. I had access to tissue samples and various other reports that were created in the course of the examination by the initial coroner. I also had photographic evidence.
Was this photographic evidence reliable?
The photographic evidence was as good as can be expected, and I was okay with it.
What was the photographic evidence specifically?
The general wounds, all the wounds on her body, it's required for all the reports done.
Were you able to confidently draw conclusions from these photos?
I was.
And did you review Dr. Sanford's conclusions?
Yeah, I have to admit, she disappointed me.
What do you mean by she disappointed you?
Well, when she first started working at the medical office, I thought she was going to be quite something. She was almost immediately promoted to run the department, the lab of forensic serology, and she's also been on a committee for professional standards, and I just don't see that this case her work was up to par.
Do you have any what problems do you have with her conclusions?
The so-called ligature marks, I have problems with some of the methodologies that she used, and I thought that the body diagram, as we've already talked about, it's lacking.
Your Honor, may the witness approach the diagram? It's already been entered into evidence.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Could you please describe the diagram, Doctor?
Okay. The major wounds that we need to be concerned about are here. The laceration on her left temple, as well as some of the marks on her wrists. They are indicated. What's missing is both the bruising around the eye, which can help us draw a conclusion about how she received the laceration, and some of the other cuts and bruises that would be found on the body. The fact that these other cuts and bruises and the mark for a bruising around the eye is not there, I feel, is very unprofessional. It doesn't conform to standards. It's unacceptable.
Could you please point out and describe the laceration?
Yes, there were 3 lacerations, so-called. Those are ligature marks. Sorry, the laceration itself is on the head. It was about 5 centimeters long and triangular in shape, which to me indicates a sort of scraping motion, which would be consistent from falling from the rocks.
How do you draw that conclusion, Doctor?
Not only from the triangular shape, I also was able to use the bruising around her eye. This is a collateral swelling of the arteries, capillaries around the eye that can occur whenever there is some sort of massive trauma, but it's particularly likely in this case where she fell.
Is that the most likely cause of the swelling?
By far.
And the other injuries?
Correct.
Are there other possible explanations?
Well, for the bruising around the eye, she might have been punched in the eye, like a black eye, but I believe that it's, with the other evidence, it's much more likely to have come from her falling.
Are the other possible explanations likely?
Not very.
Do you have any evidence to support these being true?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Do you believe that there were ligature marks on the body?
No.
Why not?
Well, these marks, which have been indicated as being ligature marks, do not go all the way around the wrist. We can see that on her inside of her left wrist, which would be right in here, there is no mark where you would expect one to be if she were in fact bound. As a matter of fact, you'd expect there to be marks all the way around, but that is not the case.
Thank you, Doctor. You may.
Thank you.
In your tenure as president of the Clearwater Rock Climbing Association, did you ever see other climbers give themselves similar marks?
Yes, I did.
And do you believe that they were exactly the same as these marks?
Well, they weren't exactly the same. They were extremely similar. The rock climbers weren't always the most careful, and they would slip. And when they grabbed the rope, they could get marks very similar to these.
Do you believe what happened to Ann Marcus?
I do.
And do you believe there's enough evidence to consider them ligature marks?
There is no way enough evidence to consider them ligature marks.
Were there any cuts and bruises on the body, Doctor?
As I already said, there are numerous cuts and bruises. These probably came from the fall, as well as some other rocks that were in the water.
And are these important to an accurate determination of cause of death?
Why they aren't the cause of death themselves, it is important because these clues will help indicate where the other marks would have come from.
And once again, could you please restate, did Dr. Sanford think to include these?
No, he did not include these.
In your professional opinion, can we easily approximate the time of death in this case?
Depends what method you use.
What would be a reliable method, doctor?
Well, two that are fairly reliable are both the body temperature, which might not have been the best for this case, but stomach contents would have been very, very good for this case, as it wouldn't have been affected by some of the variables present.
Did Dr. Sanford come up with an estimation of time of death, doctor?
Yes, he did come up with an estimation.
And what method did Dr. Sanford use?
Dr. Sanford looked at the state of rigor mortis, which is the stiffening of the body after death. This isn't a very good process for this case.
Why not?
Well, various factors can affect it, such as the temperature. We know that it occurred at night when she died, so it would have been cooler. And since she did spend some time in the water, that would have been cooler yet. This would have affected the time. Also, the fact that, and was a little bit on the light side, could have affected these.
So, doctor, do you believe that Dr. Sanford's conclusions are accurate?
Not as much as they should be.
And was there any genetic testing done on the blood sample?
Genetic testing was done on blood that was found on the rock. I also had access to that.
Was the analysis conclusive?
The analysis was inconclusive.
Why?
Well, there are many different types of blood typing. There are several types of genetic markers that can be found. Although only 6 were present in this sample, only 2 were identified. That's 1/3. That's it. That's not even a majority of matching genetic markers.
What could have been done, doctor, to make the analysis more accurate?
DNA testing, especially in this day and age, would have been a much better course to go.
Was any DNA testing done, doctor?
None.
And finally, doctor, in your professional opinion, how did Ann Marcus die?
I believe that Ann Marcus died a tragic but accidental death. She fell and probably got tangled up in a rope or tried to grab it to stop herself from falling, which would have caused the marks on her wrist. When she hit the ground, she would have been stunned and probably stumbled into the water where, unable to save herself, she drowned.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Van Dorn, isn't it true that you were being paid by the defense to be here today testifying?
I wouldn't be here if I wasn't paid.
So you're saying that they're paying you to take their side in this case?
No, I am paid to provide a second opinion. That is different.
So, and it is also true that your investigation was never actually at the crime scene?
Unfortunately, I am retired, so I did not have that opportunity.
So you were saying your whole investigation was based off of scientific documents and photographs?
Yes, these are standard things made in the course of the autopsy so that reviews can be done.
Right. Now, and you're also experienced rock climber, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you view it odd that Ann Marcus would be climbing rocks after sunset? Yes or no will do?
And not really, no, not for Ann.
Why is Ann different from anyone else?
Well, she has been sometimes not the most intelligent climber, but she's had numerous accidents in the past.
It sounds like you've known her personally.
Not personally, but I have had a little bit of contact with the Clearwater rock climbers. I mean, we're rock climbers, and that's one of the good areas around here to go climbing.
I don't believe in the documentary or anything. It just, she says she was involved in any clubs or anything. She was just an active rock climber.
That is true. She was not a member of our club.
Also, you say there was no rope found at the case, right? At the crime scene.
Could you say that again?
There was no rope found at the crime scene.
There was no rope found at the crime scene. I think why it might not have been there has been explained.
Do you think that makes it difficult for the ligature marks to appear?
She was climbing. There would have been rope there. We already know that she was rock climbing earlier. So it was there. Why it was not found, I do not know.
I have no further questions.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, do you believe the fact that you've been paid to provide testimony today has affected your testimony in any way?
No, I do not. I provide contractual reviews and on forensic pathology things. It's just, like I said earlier, it's like getting a second opinion from another doctor. Whether or not my opinion had agreed or disagreed with Dr. Morgan Sanford's opinion would not have changed that I got paid. I get paid, then I issue my opinion.
And do you still believe that your conclusions are accurate without seeing the body?
Yes, I was able to review enough evidence to come to these conclusions.
Thank you. And finally, do you believe the fact that there was not a rope found changes anything about the origin of the marks found on the body's wrist?
The fact that the rope wasn't found is inconsequential.
Thank you, Doctor. No further question.
Thank you, counsel. Will you recross?
No.
Okay, you may step down.
Thank you.
If you'd like to call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Alex Johnson to the stand.
Do you swear that your testimony in this matter will conform to the rules of the mock trial?
Yes.
Please be seated.
May I ask how much time I have left?
I got 17 minutes, right? Or no. We're at 17 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Please state your name just for the record.
I'm Alex Johnson.
Did you go to Clearwater High School last year?
Yes, I did.
And what literature class did you take?
I took Mr. Jackson's Honors English Literature class.
Is there an exam in that class?
Yes, at the very end of the year.
And how did you do?
I got an A, but unfortunately I cheated.
Okay. How did you cheat on this exam?
I volunteer in the language arts department, so one day I came across a blank exam.
Did anyone else cheat with you?
Yes, Pat Harding did.
Okay. Can you please, or were you caught cheating on this exam?
Yes, by Ann Marcus.
Can you please explain for the court the events of Ann catching you and Pat cheating?
One day after class, I was handing Pat the exam copy, and Ann came by. She grabbed it right out of his hands and was really upset. She said that we had ruined her chances at winning the scholarship.
Okay. What was Ann going to do about catching you and Pat cheating?
She's gonna do the right thing. She's gonna turn us into the administration.
Did she?
Not at that moment.
Okay. Did you make any attempts to stop Ann from turning you and Pat in?
Yeah, we talked to her a couple times. I wanted her to postpone telling the administration so I could inform my parents myself, not have to let the school tell them.
Okay. Did she agree to postpone?
Not at that time.
Okay. Did you make any further attempts over the weekend?
Yeah, I tried calling her all over the weekend, but she never really answered.
Did you reach her at all that weekend?
Yeah, on Sunday, Sunday, I called Pat Harding, and he really insisted that we should go find out where Ann was, and we both knew she was a really avid rock climber, so we knew she'd be at Belena Beach, because the cove's a really good place to rock climb.
What can you tell us about Ann's history of rock climbing?
She was a pretty experienced rock climber, but even experienced people make mistakes.
So was she known to have accidents?
Yes.
Okay. Did you meet Ann at the beach?
Yes, we did.
And where was that?
It was at the Cove.
Maybe before that? Did you meet her I'm sorry, I'll move on. What happened when you met her near the Cove?
We waited at the top of the ridge for her to get up, and as she turned around to gather up her rope, a piece of rock gave way underneath her foot, and I was really worried. I rushed forward to grab her and save her from falling over the edge. I really did save her life.
Okay. So after you saved Ann's life, what did you do?
I brought her up to make sure she was all right, and then we started to talk about the cheating.
Did you notice anything about Pat at that point?
He was laughing after Ann almost died. It was really strange.
Okay. Did all three of you participate in the conversation about postponing turning you guys in?
No, Pat actually vanished almost right when the conversation started. It was kind of weird. I thought we were in this together.
Did you have any idea as to the whereabouts of Pat?
No, he completely vanished.
Okay. So, did Ann eventually agree to postpone turning you and Pat in?
Yeah, she said she was going to wait until Tuesday so I could finally tell my parents.
Okay, so after your conversation with her, what did you do?
I watched her rock climb just a little bit more, and then I went back to Pat's car.
So what was the last thing that you saw her doing?
She was rock climbing.
Okay. When you returned to the car, was Pat there?
No, he wasn't. Which was kind of weird. I didn't know where else he'd be.
Okay. Did Pat return to the car at all that evening?
Yeah, I found him again at 9 o'clock. He was really sweaty, just like he'd been running a marathon or something. It was really, really weird.
Okay. Now, we've heard testimony about a spot being on your wrist. Could you please explain for the court what that could have been?
I have no idea. I didn't see anything on my wrist that night. I don't even know why Pat would be careless enough to take his eyes off the road while he's driving us home in pitch black night and stare at my wrist, of all places.
Okay.
It's just weird.
So what happened at school the next day?
I went in early, around 7 o'clock, because I was thinking about turning myself in, but I chickened out, unfortunately.
Anything else happened later in the day?
A couple of hours after that, over the announcements, I found out that Ann Marcus had died.
Okay. Did anybody question you about that?
Yes, Officer Chris Bonds interrogated me about it.
And how did Officer Bond's interrogation make you feel?
It was really intimidating. He stood over me. He was talking really stern. I couldn't even talk to my Aunt Myra while my parents were away in Europe. And he even read me my Miranda rights. I felt like I was being arrested. I really didn't know what to do.
Okay. I have a couple of final important questions for you, Alex. Did you ever hit Ann Marcus in the head with a rock?
No,
Did you ever bind her against her will?
never.
Did you ever push her over the cliff?
No,
Did you kill Ann?
no. It's a terrible tragedy, but I'd never resort to murder for anything.
Okay. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. So, in the events leading up to the murder you're accused of, you cheated on an exam, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you agree you did something wrong.
Yeah, deeply ashamed of it.
Did you steal from your teacher in the process of this?
Yes.
And do you agree this is also wrong?
Yes.
So you agreed that in the events leading up to the murder that you were accused of, you just made a large amount of bad and rash decisions.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Do you have a response?
It's relevant, but I can't say if I'll change the line of questioning.
Actually, I do think it is relevant. I'm going to overrule the objection.
So in the weeks leading up to this, the murder you're accused of, would you say that you made just a large amount of bad decisions?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Now, when you say you returned to the car at 8:30.
Yes.
Was anyone around to witness this?
No, Pat was somewhere, God knows where.
So nobody can prove you returned to the car?
I guess not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, let me step down. Take it the defense rests at this time.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense rests.
And I would call upon the prosecutor to make your closing argument.
Okay, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence that the prosecution has presented proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Alex Johnson murdered Ann Marcus. Now, we have shown that Alex is an angry, ill-tempered person, and he murdered Ann Marcus. And for what? Doing the right thing? I mean, what gave Alex the right to play God? Even angry people attend church. Now, unfortunately, Anne did not die of natural causes. She was stolen from us in her innocence. And Anne was filled with limitless potential. She was planning to go to a prestigious college, and she could have gone on to have a big job, maybe start a family. By Alex murdering Ann Johnson, he has not only killed Anne, but he has also killed her kids, and her kids' kids, and so on and so forth. Now, Alex murdered Ann Marcus because she threatened to turn him in for cheating. Alex Johnson murdered Anne in cold blood. Quite frankly, I've seen crocodiles with warmer blood in their veins than Alex Johnson has in his. Now, what the prosecution has pointed out is that in the case of Dr. Van Dorn, although Dr. Van Dorn has many, many impressive credentials, Dr. Van Dorn in this case is nothing but a hired gun. Anyone can be paid to say anything for the right amount of money. Also, Dr. Van Dorn never physically examined the body. All Dr. Van Dorn went off of were pictures and statements. The case of Ranger Jamie Almonte, at 8:50 p.m., when the sun set at 8:04 that night, it would be too dark to see, really, to be able to positively identify who these people were. Yes, it is possible to see people moving, but not possible to identify. It was just too dark. And also, through Jamie Almonte's close relationship with the Johnson family, there's suspicion that Ranger Almonte could be biased. And the defense's other witness, to be blunt about it, is being tried for murder, which could potentially give him a life sentence. So there is motive to lie, even though he is under oath. Now, the defense has tried to bring up some theories, and I've noticed that there have been holes. Now, in the cross-examination of Pat Harding, the defense asked, did Pat Harding see Alex Johnson kill Ann Marcus? To me, that sounds like a confession. I mean, how can that be interpreted any other way than saying, yes, Alex killed Ann, but did you see it? And he did not. Now, in the cross-examination of Officer Bonds, the onlookers were brought up. It's true there are onlookers there, but the laceration was only 5 centimeters long. The onlookers were way too far away to see a 5 centimeter laceration, which in reality is about yay big. Now, in the case of Dr. Van Dorn, I've brought up that he could be a hired gun. And in his redirect, he said he gets paid and then he voices his opinion. Yikes, that sounds pretty suspicious. I mean, we'll say he doesn't get paid enough. Maybe he leaves out a few minor details. 1 minute? Okay. Now, that's all I have to say about that. In conclusion, Ann Marcus was murdered in cold blood by Alex Johnson. This deed cannot go unpunished, so we ask the jury to convict Alex Johnson of murder in the first degree. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today the prosecution has failed. The prosecutors must have proven today that it was Alex Johnson who even killed Ann Marcus. Ann's death is a terrible tragedy. Well, let's take a look at what we know about the events surrounding Ann's death. We know that she was rock climbing on the evening that Alex and Pat went to talk to her. She's had accidents before. Her body was found in rock climbing gear. Dr. Van Dorn has given her professional testimony today that the raw marks that were found on Ann's wrists are consistent with those of someone who was falling and attempting to grab at a rope, not with someone who was bound. The only thing that we know about the blow to Ann's head is that it was caused by a blunt force. It is very reasonable to think that such a blow could have been caused by Ann's fall. Furthermore, if Alex had thrown Ann from the cliff, wouldn't there have been some broken bones in her body? You've even heard that Ballina Beach is a known cesspool of criminals. Already there's reasonable doubt as to how Ann died. Today, the prosecution put Pat Harding on the stand to tell you about some of the events of that Sunday evening. But recall that Pat cheated on the exam just like Alex. Pat was going to lose an opportunity at a scholarship just like Alex. Pat pushed all of the blame on Alex when questioned by the police. Not once today have we heard that something was Pat Harding's fault. Pat also agreed to go with Alex to the beach that evening, and you've heard testimony that he left Alex and Ann alone. Yet, Park Ranger Almonte has told you that you saw someone who looked like the passenger cross the path at a time that conflicts with Pat's story. To add even more suspicion, Alex has told you today that Pat looked tired and sweaty when they got back to the car. The defense understands that Pat Harding is not on trial today. However, Pat has the means, motive, and opportunity to commit this murder also. Next, the prosecutor must have proven that Alex, if he did kill Ann, intended to kill Ann. We've heard about the incident where Alex supposedly snapped, rushing at Ann, grabbing her. But if Alex had really wanted Ann dead, would he have thought that killing was wrong, that there was somebody watching this, and that murdering Ann would ruin his life? No, he wouldn't have even lifted a finger to save her from going over the edge. But what did he do? He reacted as any decent person would. He jumped at someone losing their balance near a cliff edge, and he kept her from going over. Alex saved Ann's life. Continuing on, the prosecutor must have proven that the pros and cons of murder were considered by Alex, and that the murder was premeditated. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex was not considering the pros and cons of anything that evening. He was trying to figure out a way to take responsibility for this cheating and tell his parents. You've heard from this young man that murder has never been on his mind. The so-called expert testimony from Dr. Sanford and Officer Bonds is wrong. You've heard from Dr. Van Doren today that Dr. Sanford's methodology is flawed at best. The blood sample that was taken from the rock cannot be conclusively linked to Ann Marcus because of Dr. Sanford's bad science. We, the defense, believe that the blood found on the rock probably is Ann's. If she fell, hit the beach, hit her head on the rock, that would explain why it's there. The point that I'm trying to make is that Dr. Sanford's testimony cannot be trusted as accurate. Twice today we've proven that she cannot perform her job. Both the incomplete medical diagram and the failure to use accurate methods of testing prove this. Who's to say that there are not more inaccurate conclusions? You've also heard that Officer Bonds completely agreed with all of the conclusions of Dr. Sanford. So what we have here are the inaccurate conclusions of Officer Bonds based off of the inaccurate conclusions of Dr. Sanford. The final question that is probably lingering in your minds is, did Alex kill Ann? Remember, the defense does not have the burden of proof. What we have shown you today is that the prosecution has once again failed. They have not presented any damning evidence against Alex Johnson. In fact, there are so many holes in their case that each and every one of the elements of murder has some reasonable doubt attached. Now, the defense has presented you a case in which there have been a number of things said, examined, and concluded upon that leave doubts in our minds. And if this same reasonable doubt exists in you, which it must after today's case, your verdict must be not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have time for a rebuttal?
33 seconds.
Does the prosecutor wish to rebut that argument?
If I only have 3 seconds, then no, Your Honor.
33.
Oh, 33.
Yes.
I'll do a quick little rebuttal, Your Honor. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to make this short and sweet, if Dr. Morgan Sanford's sum up of the body was, in fact, unreliable, and that's all Dr. Van Doren went off of, that makes Dr. Van Doren's case also unreliable, in addition to him being hired. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to retire now to the jury room. You can all breathe a sigh of relief, and we'll be back. How does it feel now? Good? You can relax. You might get some sleep tonight. You all should be extremely proud of yourself, especially after a day like today. Trial work is extremely grueling, draining, and I think you've had a taste of that here today. So We want to give you some constructive criticism for you to be able to take on and use, hopefully in the regional tournament and in future endeavors. So we'll go right over to our scoring judges, and Judge Strummers, if you could start.
Thank you. As Judge Armstrong said, the trial work is very grueling, and I noticed all of you focusing on the witness, listening to every word they said. I really appreciate that you were prepared, and that's very important. The opening statements were very good, and Josh, I thought you did a very good opening statement. Probably the best I've seen today. You had a little, I'm going to give some comments, because I think both these teams could go on to the next rounds and maybe go to Lansing. So I'm going to try to give some things that hopefully can help you if you do get there. You had a little problem with your timing at the end, even though it was such a good opening statement. Watch that, because you could get dinged for that. But I really appreciated your opening statement. It was excellent. And Zach's, your closing was very good too. Really excellent. Little things like if you drop your card or you drop your notes, don't say anything. Just pick it up and go on with what you're doing. Because when you say stuff under your breath, like, oh, darn it, oh, heck, it distracts the juries a little bit, and they forget about what you were really trying to do. Get back to what you were, and that's okay. We all drop stuff. I took a tumbler in a jury trial off of the stage, and my notes went everywhere. So it happens all the time. Just go on with what you're doing and focus back on what you're doing. The directs and cross were very good. I liked some of the testimony, how you would repeat the question, especially on cross. You would repeat the good evidence that you wanted. You repeat the answer so the jury gets to hear it twice and then go on. Some of the things you have to really focus on is when there's an objection and you lose, don't say I'm sorry. You're not really sorry, because you're asking these questions for a reason. What you really want to focus on is the reason that you asked the question and why it applies to the rules. So even if the judge rules against you, tell the judge why you asked that question and why it's important under the rules to get that evidence out, instead of just saying I'm sorry and moving on. Edward, I thought the witnesses were very good, especially Edward. I was pretty amazed at your ability to play such an effective nerd. It was very, very good, and that's important because when you go on to Lansing or the regionals, they're gonna, you get graded as witnesses too. So your witnesses on both sides of the aisle were very good. Alex, again, on your closing, I thought was really good. I like that you were calling the defendant Alex, or Zach rather was calling the defendant Alex. I know we can't be too informal in court, but you made Alex seem like a kid, and it was up there fighting for their lives, and you were fighting for that for Alex on that. I appreciated that. So overall, very, very good job.
I was also very impressed by both students and both teams. Charles, I really appreciated in your closing argument the way that you listened to what the witnesses had to say, and then you incorporated that into your closing argument. I appreciated that. It shows me that you're an astute litigator. Charles, you can't mention penalty. That you can't mention somebody going to prison. You can't mention anything about that when you're arguing. That's something that you just can't mention. So just keep that in mind. The witnesses on behalf of the prosecution, the only witness who looked us in the eye was Holly. Holly, you looked us you looked at us in our eyes, and we were able to connect better with you than I think Josh, because you were more concentrated on the person that was asking you questions, which is very good, but we would appreciate being included in those answers. So just keep that in mind. I thought that the Gerhardt, you have such a nice presence. I really, the one thing I would like to see from you is more assertiveness. For example, when you start off from the get-go, I want you to stand up and announce who you are and what you're going to be doing, and then, and that sets the tone to show that you're in control, and hey, this is your courtroom. And Gerhardt, I'd like to see that in everything that you do, because you really have a good presence, but I'd like to see more out of you. And you were the first person actually to mention the identification of the defendant, which is something that we have to prove in every single criminal case that we do, so I liked that. Now, on the flip side, really good team, the defense team, very, very good. Lena, you're so funny because your direct was really good. I really liked your direct. Your cross-examination, I felt like you were forcing it too much. I just want you to relax a little bit and kind of take a step back and leave that pen behind. Because when you are snapping on that, we are paying attention, and that annoys jurors, and you don't want to alienate yourself from jurors. So try to leave that alone. Keep it at your desk, and it's fine. We all have our tics. Zach. Excellent, really excellent. You're obviously extremely bright. Excellent close. Your questions very good. So I thought that you did a really nice job. Joshua, I wouldn't change a thing except I would shorten it up. I found myself drifting when you were doing your opening statement. It was all good, but just shorten it up and get to your point. But overall, wow, we're so impressed, and congratulations on whatever you decide to do.
I was very impressed with the opening statements, especially your opening statement, even though that was when you sort of ran out of time, but it didn't really matter because you'd already gotten all your major points in. There's sort of a recurring theme that we saw in this and in some of the earlier arguments, the technique of saying yes, asking a question, saying yes or no, and there had been some comments and observations. Maybe you had a comment in your previous ones, but that's it's something that a juror could sort of resent, because it sounds like you're trying to stop the person from telling the truth or explaining his answer. And in real life, in real courts, you really can't do that, because a judge is always going to let the person explain his answer if it's appropriate. So just sort of my suggestion would be to think of a different way, say, ask a question, say, isn't that correct? Which is sort of like puts the person in the position of, saying yes or no without really being able to feel like he's being pinned down by a yes or no, either saying yes or no at the beginning or at the end. Zach, with the technical charts way, so I don't remember who you were cross-examining, but your cross-examination of your witness was very good, very methodical. I remember you picked the witness apart very well. Lisa, again, you just have to kind of slow it down. I know, I think it's your style, but it isn't as effective because we have a hard time kind of following what you're saying. So the other thing, overall, I thought you both had a good job of not being over-objecting. Some of the earlier rounds we did see just objecting too much, almost for the sake of objecting. You really chose your moments well, I think, for when you did object. They were appropriate because it really was a place where someone was going too far afield. And you really had to do that to protect your side. So, and the closing, I forgot, Charles. I like the way you kind of personalized it by talking about the victim and not being able to go on with their life and so forth. But I thought you were a little too heavy-handed by almost calling the other expert witness a hired gun. Let the juror figure that out for themselves. Maybe do that a little bit softer, but it's a good try. So I think you all did a good job, and wish you all luck in the big judging.
I know you all want to get out of here, so I'll be brief. First of all, what I'd like to point out are a couple of what I would call stylistic things as it concerns the witnesses. Josh, I think you probably needed to direct your testimony to the jury a little more, but I attributed that to maybe you being a first-time witness. Are you? Okay. And some nervousness still, and that's understandable. But when you compete in the future, make sure you direct your testimony to the jury, because that's just the way you're supposed to do it. Because in a real trial, it's the jury that's listening to you, and it's the jury that's taking a look at you and judging your credibility and making the ultimate decision. As far as the rest of you are concerned, I think that, for instance, Joshua, one thing I liked in your opening was that when the timer announced you had a minute left, it did not appear to rattle you at all. You just kept on and you kept on going. The only thing I would have done differently was when they said you were out of time, I would have finished my sentence anyway. So, but, well, you know, you're there. And, but on the other hand, when it was announced, you weren't rattled at all, whereas many other people whom we've seen today were a little tense and a little rattled when they were told they had a minute left. And they acknowledged that, whereas you just kept on going, and I think that was a really good thing to do. So the rest of you, congratulations. Congratulations on finishing out the day. I'm sure you'll sleep a lot easier tonight.
Okay, let me start off just with the witnesses, because I agree with what everybody's said so far with the witnesses. You all did a good job. Just, if you do go on, remember the eye contact. You know, it's not easy to look at 6 people that are staring at you. But the better eye contact you have, the better you can sell your position. So try to work on that and work on your voices too. Keep them up. When you're here, when you're over there, because we're over here when you're at the board. So remember to try to keep it up. Let me start with prosecution. Gerhardt, I thought you did a great job. I think you're the only one that I can remember today that actually humanized your victim. Told her story a little bit in your opening, and that is so important in these criminal cases, really in any case, but to humanize your victim, and for the defense to humanize your client. It's tough to do because you don't actually have the defendant sitting next to you like you would in a case, but you want to keep that in mind because that is helping the jury to understand who are we dealing with here. So Gerhard, I thought you did a good job in humanizing your victim. Josh, on the defense side, I thought you did a good job in your opening with the alternate theories. I had actually said this to the teams earlier today, you know, about these alternate theories, that it could have been Pat Harding, it could have been an accident, it could have been a bad element at the Cove, and you brought that all out in your opening. And to go one step further, in your crosses and your directs, the defense team, you brought that out, and then you hammered it at closing. All these alternate theories to create that reasonable doubt. Charles, on the prosecution side, I thought you had good emotion and you listened to the testimony, to mirror what Ms. Key said. You listened, and that's half of the battle in these cases too, to listen to what the witnesses say, to listen to what your opponents say, and come back at them. And you did a good job at that. Let's see, Lena, right? Is it Lena?
Yeah.
Okay. You had very good objections. But be careful to try not to argue with your witness when you're cross-examining them. Just question that witness like you question your own witness, because you're going to set them up. You've got your questions. You're going to set them up. The answers are going to be the punch. You don't have to do it yourself. And I would say too, with the pen, when you were hitting it, and what that is nerves. And I'll just end it with this. I said this earlier, that public speaking, they say, is sometimes, it's the number one fear that you have. And when you are fearful, you hold your breath. And what do you do at that point? Well, you might hit your pen. You might find yourself saying okay to questions. Your hands might get sweaty. But when you're in that fear mode, what's the natural instinct? Fight or flight. Well, you can't run out of the courtroom when you're questioning a witness. So, but what you do though is that you can lose your jury. Like Ms. Key says, when you're hitting your pen, what's happening is the jury's focusing on that, and they're not listening to the testimony or not listening as much because they're distracted. So one or a couple of ways you can try to help with those nerves is, before you come in here, it may sound corny, but do breathing exercises and voice exercises. Just have a big yell before you come into court to get that nervous energy out, and then you come in here and then you're ready to go. And you might not have as many of those nervous tics or habits. So just think about that, and if you guys do go on, good luck, because you did a very good job today.
I just have a couple of specific comments. As far as the witnesses, Josh F. playing Pat, I thought that you were very believable as somebody who's kind of in a lot of trouble. And John playing the defendant, I thought you were very likable as a defendant, which was, helpful for the defense. And Edward, as the, somewhat absent-minded professor, I thought that was very good. Joshua, in your opening, I was impressed by the fact that you had no notes. It was all coming from your head, and I liked that you talked about all the different possibilities of what could have happened. Just watch out for the time. Zach, on your direct examination of the defendant, I loved your last 3 questions where you asked, did you hit her? Did you push her? Did you tie her up? I think that really, summarized it well, and I thought you had a really good closing argument that tied things up for us. So great job, everybody.
Absolutely. I really appreciate, again, all of your efforts. It's clear that you worked very hard. You work very well together and have thought about how you're going to approach these cases, or this case, and your strategies. So that's very apparent. Lena, did you even realize you were clicking it? No, I see. I didn't think you did. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. I do the same thing, and that's why I carry pens like this. When I go to court, it's the same thing. It's absolutely something that you don't even realize you're doing. And that's not to pick on you, because like I said, I do the exact same thing. Guys who have change in your pocket or keys in your pocket, you'll stick your hands in your pocket and jangle it around. You won't even realize you're doing it. I would suggest, particularly those of you that are going to be going on, you should have a video recording. And I've done a lot of training for prosecutors across the state. Whenever we do something on a video recording, I tell them to take it home, find a room with no windows, shut all the doors, shut all the lights, and put yourself in there and just watch it just yourself. And you will be amazed at what you see. You'll find that you had nervous tics that you had no idea you were doing. And so for all of you, I think you'll find, whether it's, I believe one of the judges mentioned, if it's saying okay after a witness, you ask a question, the witness gives the answer, and it's almost a knee-jerk reaction to say okay after every answer. You don't even realize you're doing it until you see it on tape. So I encourage you to do that, because I think even more than what we can tell you, you're going to be taking away some really positive ways to improve your performance. But you all did phenomenally. The only other thing I'd ask you to think about as you prepare for future competitions, whether it's here next year or the tournaments regionally, is remember why you're asking your questions. It was almost difficult up here sometimes. I had to sustain an objection that I didn't want to sustain because the answer I got for why the testimony was being sought just didn't support its admission. So you have to, whenever you're preparing your questions, think about why you're asking the question and how it's admissible. You never know when the objections are going to come. So what you can prepare is your response if it's going to come, and anticipate what they might, what the opposing team might try and do to keep your testimony out. But honestly, I think for the level and caliber of work that you guys have done, you should be very proud of yourself. I know a lot of new lawyers, and maybe some lawyers that aren't so new, that don't have the presence in court that you have. And so now you can celebrate, and we are done.